This forum remains a critical platform for constructive engagement among stakeholders, committed to strengthening our electoral process and advancing democratic governance in the country. As Nigeria marks 27 years of uninterrupted constitutional democracy, it is reasonable to expect that our democratic institutions, the electoral process, and legal framework would have evolved sufficiently to deepen democratic culture, promote political stability, strengthen electoral integrity, and enhance the quality of governance. The aspiration of every patriotic Nigerian is to see a democratic system that is inclusive, transparent, accountable, and responsive to the needs and expectations of Nigerians. Distinguished party leaders and members of the Commission, the success of any electoral process begins long before election day. It starts with the credibility, transparency, and legitimacy of the process through which political parties nominate candidates for public office. Political parties remain the primary vehicle for democratic participation and electoral competition. Consequently, the integrity of the electoral process is fundamentally linked to the integrity of internal party processes. The nomination of candidates by political parties for the 2027 general election officially concluded on Saturday, 30th May 2026, in accordance with the timetable and schedule of activities released by INEC. However, the conduct of these primaries exposed significant legal, administrative, and operational challenges that deserve urgent national attention. Political parties encountered unprecedented difficulties in conducting primaries for the offices of the President, the Governor, Senator, Member of the House of Representatives, and Member of the State House of Assembly. These challenges arose largely from the restrictive provisions of Section 84, subsection 2 of the Electoral Act 2026, which limited parties to either consensus or direct primaries, effectively eliminating the option of indirect primaries. The experience of the just concluded nomination exercise demonstrates that the removal of indirect primaries created considerable constraints for political parties. In many instances, parties adopted the consensus option despite the existence of multiple aspirants who had duly purchased expression of interest and nomination form. Several aspirants were persuaded and in some cases pressured to withdraw from the contest after preferred candidates had already been identified by influential party stakeholders. While some aspirants accepted these arrangements in the interest of the party unity, others challenged their exclusion, arguing that genuine consensus requires the voluntary agreement of all contestants. Consequently, several disputes have found their way to the court, creating uncertainty and avoidable tension within the political system. Furthermore, the enormous financial and logistical demands associated with direct primaries presented significant challenges, particularly for political parties that do not control governmental resources. Faced with these realities, some parties adopted extraordinary measures to avoid circumstances that could necessitate direct primaries. In some cases, nomination forms were not made widely available to prospective aspirants. In others, Congress and primary election schedules were not publicly announced in a timely manner to minimize potential disputes. This development constitutes an unfortunate and unintended consequence of the current legal framework governing party primaries. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, another area of concern relates to the uncertainty generated by conflicting judicial pronouncements regarding INEC's power to regulate and fix timetable for party primaries and the resolution of disputes arising therefrom. While one court nullified aspects of the Commission's timetable, another subsequently affirmed INEC's authority in that regard. This situation has created confusion among political parties, candidates, and other stakeholders. Although the Commission has appealed the earlier judgment, The existence of conflicting decisions on critical electoral matters undermines public confidence and introduces avoidable uncertainty into the democratic process. Similarly, political parties were required to submit updated membership register, including national identification numbers, within a limited time frame. While the objective of enhancing the credibility and accuracy of party membership records is commendable, the implementation process proved challenging. Many genuine party leaders were inadvertently excluded due to logistical constraints and the compressed timetable for compliance. It is important to recall that the Interparty Advisory Council had anticipated many of these challenges. At its General Assembly meeting held on 26 February 2026 in Abuja, the Council carefully reviewed the implication of the Electoral Act 2026 and urged the National Assembly to reconsider certain provisions, particularly the exclusion of indirect primaries from the available mode of candidate nomination. IPAC maintained then, as it does today, that political parties should retain the flexibility to determine the most appropriate method of selecting their candidates, provided such processes remain democratic, transparent, and consistent with constitutional principles. We communicated this concern to relevant national institutions and also drew the attention of the international community, including the United Nations, the European Union, ECOWAS, diplomatic missions, and Nigerians in the diaspora. The events surrounding the recently concluded primaries have unfortunately validated many of the concerns previously raised by the Council. Accordingly, IPAC called on the National Assembly once more, in collaboration with relevant stakeholders, to undertake a comprehensive review of the Electoral Act 2026 with a view to addressing the operational deficiencies revealed during the nomination process. Electoral laws should promote democratic participation, strengthen political institutions, and advance the national interest rather than create avoidable obstacles to effective political competition. Distinguished stakeholders, elections remain the cornerstone of representative democracy. There is no substitute for a democratic system founded on the free expression of the will of the people. As we prepare for the forthcoming governorship elections in Ekiti and Osun State, and ultimately the 2027 general elections, we must collectively work to restore public trust and confidence in the electoral process. The credibility of the elections is indispensable to democratic legitimacy, political stability, national cohesion, and sustainable development. IPAC, therefore, urges political actors across the country to embrace issue-based campaign and reject all forms of violence, intimidation, hate speech, and political extremism. Democracy thrives on healthy competition of ideas, not confrontation and bloodshed. In this regard, the Council also condemns the recent incidents of political violence reported in Osun State. We call on all political actors to exercise restraint and place the national interest above partisan considerations. No political ambition is worth the loss of human lives, the destruction of properties, or the destabilization of communities. We equally call on security agencies to discharge their constitutional and statutory responsibilities with professionalism, neutrality, and diligence to ensure a peaceful political environment throughout the electoral cycle. As the nation's electoral management body, INEC occupies a pivotal position in Nigeria's democratic architecture. The Commission must continue to uphold the highest standard of impartiality, professionalism, transparency, and accountability. It is imperative that all political parties and candidates are accorded equal treatment and provided with a level playing field. The confidence of Nigerians and international community in our electoral system depends sustainably on the integrity, independence, and credibility of the Commission. We therefore urge INEC to remain steadfast in the discharge of its constitutional mandate. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is a defining moment in our democratic journey. It is a time for patriotism, statesmanship, and collective responsibility. The task of building a strong, decisive, progressive, prosperous, and resilient democracy belongs to all of us. Let us continue to nurture and strengthen the institution of democracy so that they may effectively serve the people and deliver the dividends of good governance, social justice, economic opportunity, and national development. As the umbrella body of all star political parties in Nigeria, the Interparty Advisory Council will remain committed to constructive engagement and collaboration with INEC, the National Assembly, security agencies, civil society organizations, development partners, and all other stakeholders in the collective effort to deepen democratic governance and strengthen electoral integrity in our country. Together we can build a democratic system that reflects the aspirations of our people and secures a brighter future for generations yet or more. I thank you all for listening.